Hi there. The couple of coins that we are going to cover today is that they have gone through a pretty violent shakeout period already. So from the very early accumulation since middle of this year or even before the middle of this year to the point where they are now at a lower point than the selling climax themselves. Let's look at these four coins through the Wyckoff lens and see where they are heading, and is this the final shakeout before the launch to the moon? So let's find out. If you're new to my sessions, these are the three key items I'll cover for the coins that we are going to talk about. And let's start with the weekly chart of the very first one, the Casper. So Casper is currently going through a deeper test. Okay, we haven't yet defined it as a spring yet, but I did mention there's a chance that it's going to go deeper before the launch. Okay, in Wyckoff method, during accumulation, there is the selling climax and then subsequent tests. Okay, and there would be a very deep test. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Before the price recline to the sign of strength and maybe even a new distribution cycle again. Okay, during these stages, I've prepared some descriptions, so it's going to be easier for you to visualize what's actually happening among the behavior of people. Okay, during the preliminary support stage is actually the panic sell period, and the whales started to slowly get in. Selling climax is where the panic is finally over. Automatic rally is the stage where people got in after the selling climax, and it defines the horizontal trading range of the accumulation cycle, the top of that range. And eventually, it's a series of tests of basically paper hands or diamond hands. All right. Okay, so that's where we are now with Casper. Likewise for the subsequent couple of coins that I'm going to talk about. And during this period, obviously, the whales are going to get in, but not until the very final stage, about backup and last point of support, they may give it the last injection, and then the price shoot up. Advance with volumes means these sign of strengths. All right, this chart that I'm using, it has more history of Casper, but doesn't carry the volume. We can switch to another chart when we get to the daily time frame. I'm not going to put in these tags for now because we're not yet in the distribution stage. Let's keep them over there. But that's basically from the big picture point of view that the tests are still continuing and we may be seeing a spring. I know the current price is like the all-time low for Casper, but as I shared many times, during accumulation, the price can get lower than the selling climax itself, so it's not a surprise. So let's get to the daily. In the daily time frame, still it's the same thing. The tests we have talked about, and last week I did mention that here, while the price seems to have no direction and finding a bit of support around this line, it hasn't left the downtrend yet. So as that we hope to see it trade sideways and eventually breaks outside of the downtrend. And currently it has moved to a lower level of support. From the previous 0.0057 roughly to the current 0.0053. If this continues again, it's not going to surprise. Not going to be a surprise, but if it stays below the white solid line, the bottom edge of the long-term playground zone that trades the price of Casper since 4 or 5 years ago. That was a low set in November 2024. We've already broken below it, and let's hope it stays above this level. Like I said, it's a test of paper hands versus diamond hands. If the price can't go any deeper, obviously this will stop and eventually trade sideways until it reaches one of these time points. Either towards Jan 4th or Jan 11th. So it coincides with like a lot of narratives that's been throwing around May it be for tax reasons, or may it be for waiting new regulations to come in, or may it be the QT effect to kick in, QT stopping effect to kick in. Okay, so December is going to be a bit rough. That's for Casper. And then if we move to the next one, is DOGE. Basically, it's going through a similar period. It's currently going very close to the low where the selling climax has tested. Okay, obviously the previous few weeks has already closed below the selling climax level. Again, paper hands diamond test is going to continue, as that high percentage would go to subsequent tests, and this kind of shaking will continue until the point that the big guys know, okay, it's all diamond hands holding Doge now. Looking at the volume, it looks a bit encouraging, but we have to go to the daily to take a look. If this red gets lower and lower, that means we may be seeing this shake's bottom. Not the actual bottom, unfortunately, because October 10th showed us where it can dip to. Alright, it's the level same as where the accumulation low was back in August, September 2024. That period went even lower to about 8 cents. Okay, so we don't hope to see that happen, but there is a possibility for this kind of shakeout to get to that point. And in terms of daily, we've been tracking this downtrend, and 2 days ago it slightly went above, so it's time to adjust a little just to make sure we have these candlesticks all covered. Yeah, it hasn't tested the ceiling as much. It tested the ceiling only once, so now we have a better reference combining these 2 points, one in the beginning of October, one almost exactly 2 months later. Then we've got a better air hockey table or a downward channel reference. So if you're new to my sessions, I call these air hockey tables. Basically, if you look at the this track, imagine it's the puck traveling or bouncing between the edges of the table. Okay, that game, in addition to the sides of the table, we see the center line. Sometimes the price just finds support or resistance around the center line as well. So imagine the puck would get a little bit of trouble traveling through the half of the table. The line doesn't cut the box exactly in half. It's basically cutting through where the most candlestick heads or tails come through in the middle. Okay, what happened yesterday was that, or even the day before, when they first get rejection, as you see, they would break from the ceiling of the box. Currently is coming down after testing the ceiling of the downtrend. I shared last week that if it successfully climbs above this yellow dash line of around 14 cents 80, there's a chance to break out. But unfortunately, the confirmation comes in saying, no, it's not time to break outside of the trend yet. However, it's not over yet, because there's also another line around 13 cents 85, and it's pointing towards just a week later. So if we continue to trade within this triangle, then the second opportunity comes. However, like I said, if the narrative is to wait till 2025 to be over before the actual either bounce or maybe altcoin season or not, then this line, the blue level over here at around 9 cent 50, points exactly towards the end of the year. Okay, so if it doesn't break us out of the downtrend and go to challenge this level where the October 10th challenged, remember there's such possibility. Okay, assuming we're going through this testing period, I did say there can be deeper tests or even a spring. So it's possible that the price comes down. Alright, we don't hope for that to happen. I'm just letting you know there is a possibility. Obviously, we hope that it breaks outside of this downtrend earlier and trades sideways. Okay? don't ever get to this blue line set by the October 10th event. If you go to the very left, September, August, July 2024 all tested this level. So like I said, in the weekly chart, it can come to this level, just that we don't hope to see it happen. And in terms of volume, the fortunate thing, or probably not, is actually still fluctuating. You see, on Monday we've got a pretty tall bar, not as tall as the previous ones. That's a relatively better sign, but still tall. Okay, and the white bars aren't as tall as the red, so that's the sign that it's still, the shake is still going on. So yeah, unfortunately the volume doesn't tell us much. For Casper, I've forgotten to go back to the volume, so let's take a quick look. Again, similar. There are tall bars pushing the price down, so it's still pretty ugly shakeout test for Casper itself. So remember, the paper hands, diamond hands tests are going to continue. Let's go to the third one, V-chain. Sorry, I have to plug in the power. It's on the laptop. So for V-chain, again, it's going through the paper hands, diamond hands test, Shakeout. The good sign compared to the others is that we are seeing some white candlesticks. However, last week, basically there's a rejection from the red key level of 0.015. All right, this week is a white cross. The volume is higher, so when we get to the daily chart, we'll be able to see, is it like, the near past few days pushes the price back up. If it does, it seems to be a good sign that it's trying to stay above this yellow dash line of about 0.013. Okay, where does this line come from? Obviously, this week of November 3rd, tested it. 2 weeks ago, it closed above this line, and if we go to the left, that's where the spring was back in June 2023. And again, this test will continue until there are no more paper hands. And I've pulled the one over here. It should be, yeah, this one should stay here. We have this one here. Okay, let's get to the daily and see what it is telling us. Downtrend, unfortunately, is still trading on the weaker side. It's trading within this triangle, and like I said, if it successfully heads towards the stronger side of the downward channel, when we get closer to January, either near the end of the year or near the third week of January, the chances of breakout outside of this downward channel is getting closer. However, you see it's still getting rejection from the center line of the downtrend. So since November 26th, it tried to go above, but every time it go above, it got rejected down. It's only one day, on Wednesday, that is successfully closed above, but immediately afterwards, it's coming down. And the volume itself, the past 3 days, those aren't supported by high volumes. The two red volumes over here is a bit mixed, actually. So let's look at the longest, the tallest bar. It's telling us that it's finding quite a bit of support when the price tried to test the bottom of the air hockey table or the downtrend channel. However, the next day, it's got mixed message. Basically, people are trying to, or the bulls are trying to push the price to the stronger side of the channel, while the bears are pushing the price back down to below this yellow line, and that's ended up something like what we are seeing now. The price is basically trading around this 0.13 level. Okay, this yellow dash line. So, assuming this test will continue, okay, I said, it's going to be a high chance over there. But remember, these tests can go lower than the selling climax itself if we attack this right in the daily time frame. Again, if you're new to my sessions, Wyckoff method isn't designed for the daily. It's just for this. It's an attack community based on community members request that I put it in a lower level time frame and see whether I can still make sense out of it. It's more experimental, but if this is correct, then it's not a surprise for the price to come down to test the 0.0095 range. Alright, that's a level set by the October 10th event, as well as sometime in November 2020. We don't want to go back to the price 5 years ago, but October 10th told us that it can absolutely do that. Alright, so that's VET, and then finally Filecoin, the fourth one that's going through a similar period of very deep tests. Okay, assuming this is a spring, and it quickly come back down to this current level. Not that we hope to see, but still, when the volume starts to decline, that's slightly relieving. And let's put in the text as well. This weekend diamond hands test, this shake period is going to continue. Alright, that's where we are now. We hope to see sign of strength coming to test the 3.15 key level again, and that's the big picture. Remember, sign of strength need to advance with volume, much like what we see on the very beginning of November. And subsequently, we'll go through a period where whales will do their last injection. Automatic rally, I already talked about, is the cycle top. Panic sell is the PSY, PS period, preliminary support. Move the red line. Okay. And then panic over is the selling climax. Let's quickly go to the daily time frame for Filecoin. Here, let's do auto. Like I said, in the daily, the Wyckoff stages doesn't necessarily have to be in sync with the weekly. So if we have gone through a buying climax and then subsequently we have re-entered the paper hands, diamond hands test, what we're going through now is just subsequent tests. And we want to see the price to go back to test this 1.75 roughly, that level set by the automatic rally, just back in November 25th. And the volume currently starts to decline, both the days that the price rise and the day that the price gets lower. We hope to see lower volume bars for the red days. The good thing is, if this horizontal trend continue, it will eventually get to a point where the shake test is over, and when that's done, then it's time for the price to go back to the sign of strength. So currently we're trading, or Filecoin is trading at this very narrow range, this horizontal range. Already set is set by the automatic rally for the range top. Let's say this is the top of the air hockey table, the ceiling of the air hockey table. The bottom, however, is not the selling climax itself. We can take the current one at around 14 cents 40. However, this may not be the lowest, because look at where the spring went during November. Okay, it can go as deep as almost 13 cents. So let's assume that's the pessimistic or worst case scenario. Alright, let's assume that's the case. We don't want it to go that deep, but it can. That's not much history for us to track back for Filecoin over here. So let's assume that's where, in the short term, the pessimistic scenario can go, while the positive scenario is obviously going to come up and test the 3.15 like I said. Alright, so thanks for joining me in this session. I'll add one more session later on this new format, just that I have to go to the dentist now. See you later in the day.